Welcome to the Live Your Purpose podcast, featuring compelling interviews with big-hearted people in the Oklahoma City metro area who are leading, creating, and innovating on purpose. Get inspired by conversations with passionate difference makers from our local community. I'm your host, Charles Gossett, life purpose coach and founder of Full Integration Coaching. On today's episode, we sit down with Brian Warfield, a compassionate hospital chaplain who's using his gifts to serve and support others in their time of greatest need. And now, the Live Your Purpose podcast. Welcome to this edition of the Live Your Purpose podcast. I'm here today with Brian Warfield, who has been a hospital chaplain for over 8 years. He's had the chance to work at Baptist Medical Center, Spencer Mental Health, and most recently at Southwest Medical Center as Pastoral Care Manager. What he loves most is meeting people who are in a difficult crisis and providing a caring presence to support them. When he's not chaplaining, he loves to spend time with his family, go running with friends, and play the guitar. He also spends entirely way too much of his money at Dunkin Donuts. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Charles. Thanks so much for having me. It's a joy and an honor to be here today.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad to have you on the show. This is the first interview that I've done since the coronavirus outbreak, and so we're doing it remotely. We're all learning as we go.
I've sanitized my hands just so everybody knows.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's one of us. So hold on. Maybe I'd better pause this and go clean up.
Sure.
Okay. Well, normally I'd be on site with you, and we can talk more about where you work and where you have worked. But we're operating through Zoom and recording this, which is really cool to be able to do. And as you know, the show is called the Live Your Purpose podcast, and it's an opportunity for my guests just to talk about their why, the purpose for their life and their work, and the contribution they make here in the OKC Metro. So we start off with a kickoff question, and you've selected yours, and we'll do that and just see where the conversation takes us.
Sounds great, Charles.
Okay, so Brian, what are the struggles and triumphs that have most shaped your life?
So the struggles and triumphs. The reason I picked this is because sometimes the greatest difficulties or the greatest tragedies in life have been also the things that have shaped me the most. So I can start with really in high school. I grew up in a pretty normal household. Oh, sorry, Charles.
That's okay.
I'm getting a page to the ER.
Oh, well, probably better go.
Yeah. Is there any way we can try again, maybe in like 30 minutes or so?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Take care of that. Yeah. Take care of that. And just text me when you're free.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
That's okay, Ryan. Okay. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye. Okay, everyone. We are back now. So yeah, Brian, you were called away for official chaplain duties, and feel free to tell us anything about that you'd like, since that came up.
Yeah, that is basically the life of a hospital chaplain. Just when you think there's some downtime, usually somebody says the Q word in the hospital. They say the word quiet or calm is a C word, but and everything kind of loose. But I had a call to the ER and took care of a family there, and they were comforted, and really, really great family. So, so I guess before I got called away, I was kind of talking about the struggles and triumphs that have shaped my life. And so in high school, I lived a pretty typical elementary, junior high, high school, if there is a typical experience
right
for American kid in the suburbs. but we had been a very church going, very religious family, and my mom, my dad, my sister, and I, life was good. And um, right about the time I turned 16, my mom took me to go get my driver's license test. One of my favorite memories. And life was going good. And about a month after I got my driver's license, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And by the time they found it and diagnosed her, she was already well advanced, basically stage 4 lung cancer. It had spread. And so the next 6 months or so were just a whirlwind. And unfortunately, she ended up passing away from that cancer in January of 2001. And that kind of just hit the reset button on life for me. It
Yeah.
was like a new epic, a new era. And so in that time, my mom was kind of my confidant, the person I talked to, the person I just unloaded all of life's burdens to. And in that absence, in that void, I turned to my faith and just found such comfort and solace there. And, as a 16-year-old boy, you're also asking the question of, yeah, what next in life? And why am I here? Talking about the big why of life and my why.
Right.
And really, what I felt God saying is, your greatest pain, your greatest hurt can also be the thing that turns into your greatest gift towards others. And so out of that, I felt this strong call to ministry, to care for people. And I had absolutely no idea what that would look like. And so I went on a mission trip to Seattle, Washington, and worked with homeless teenagers, young people, kind of the same station of life as me, same age, um, and all that. And of course, their challenges and tragedies were much different than mine. They were homeless, they were estranged from their family, but I just had a great sense of compassion for them. And so, really, for the next 4 years of high school and then college, I tried to kind of clarify, what I was called to. I thought it was to open up a homeless shelter for teenagers. Um, and so I became a youth pastor, and I went that route. And then I realized adolescent ministry is um, not what I'm meant for a lifetime. Maybe, um, but uh, but anyway, God opened up an opportunity to go to seminary, and after seminary, I really felt God calling me to take care of just you know um, anybody, whatever. I just wherever they were, not just young people, but um, older people, um, all different kinds of folks. And so I thought that would be as a pastor of a church. Um, but talking about struggles and triumphs, one of the struggles I had was my resume got lost. Um, our denomination had a reference and referral program, and so they would match up graduating seminary students with churches that were looking for pastors and ministers. And I was waiting for the last year of seminary to get some callbacks. I never did. And I kind of checked in, one day, and they're like, "Oh, we don't have your resume. We don't we know you sent it in, but we lost it.
Oh, man, that would have been nice to know.
Yeah. Okay. Plan B. Um, so plan B was to come back home. We were in New Jersey at the time, and plan was to come back home to Oklahoma, and um, I just had no idea what I was going to do. But there was a chaplain job open up at Baptist Medical Center, Integris Baptist, and so it was just a 1 year residency. I thought, if anything, this pays the bills. I'll do this, and maybe it'll springboard to something else. But I did that for a year, and just there was such a connection there because I just enjoy being with people, and I enjoy being with people that are either on the margins. Um, Society has not um, made space for them, or has ignored them in some way, or they just because of illness, they find themselves in a marginal place. And um, my theology is that God often finds us in those thin places, those liminal places in life, kind of on the outskirts, on the edges of life, and just found a lot of meaningful connections. And so through that, just kind of, found a home in chaplaincy. And so that, the the grief of losing my mom kind of led me to pursue ministry, and then the frustration of losing my resume uh, led me to find chaplaincy. And then a third struggle was I was kind of moving along in chaplaincy, really enjoying where I was at. It was about 2015, I believe. Was that right? Yeah. Um, 2016. Yeah, 2016. I was just chaplain at our mental health hospital, and the neat part about it was I got to see just a vast array of different age groups and um, experiences. And I joke. So we had children, adolescents, and adults there. And so basically in the morning, I could be playing with Play-Doh and coloring a picture with a 6-year-old. By the afternoon, I was jamming out to Imagine Dragons with the teenagers and trying to find meaning in that. And then by late afternoon, I was on the adult unit talking with you know um, a mother of 3 who was trying to find a reason to keep going. And so, I mean, I loved what I was doing there. But one April morning, not too long after my birthday, that was kind of funny. Um, when I got the papers later, the date that it was dated was April 13th, which was my birthday. But I got a call to come into my boss's office, which is, you know, yeah, not always the best thing.
Right,
And
depending on the situation. Yeah.
yeah, it could be a promotion, it could be a raise,
Yeah.
could be a flip. Um, so in this case, she just brought me into the office and said, "Hey, I'm sorry. Um, we've had some company-wide layoffs, and your position has been eliminated." And so I I was completely just floored. I did not see that coming at all. I thought, I'm the only one in my position. I'm the only chaplain here. Just did not see that coming. And so that was another bit of soul searching. But
Well, yeah, if we could just take a minute to catch up, because you've done a
yeah,
wonderful job of laying the landscape, and which to me indicates that you've spent a lot of time in reflection and
yeah,
processing your experiences over the years, since your teenage years at least. When around 16, after you got your driver's license, your mother discovered that she had cancer, and then unfortunately passed away shortly thereafter, which you told us, was really a primary motivator for wanting to help other people, and beginning to, having been raised in a religious family, steeped in the Christian tradition and faith, sensing a call on your life at a pretty early age. So was that at like 16, 17, when you really had this type of relationship with God, where you sensed that you were being called to use your pain to help others?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And it's interesting how um, our worldview changes and how our theology changes. Yeah, at that point, it was very much a very personal type of faith. I
yeah,
felt, you know, just this very personal interaction, that there was this God who, um, was kind of still shaping me. I felt a sense of being shaped by this, um, but um, but yeah, having a sense of purpose that, um, there's, I don't know, I kind of have the visual of like an arrow, a trajectory. There's a way through this. There's an arc to this, and so yeah, that kind of gave me some direction to go. So yeah, that's a uh, good kind of summation of, yeah, kind of what happened.
yeah. And for times like this that we're in now, as of the time of the recording of this podcast episode, the coronavirus outbreak is new. In Oklahoma, at least, we're being, increasingly led to what seems like probably quarantine. And I and my family have been practicing, what's the terminology? Staying at home on our own accord,
Hmm.
and so we've been self isolating, and doing very limited amounts of things in the outside world, which has
Hmm.
presented all kinds of new dynamics and new stresses, and really new opportunities too. But there's a lot of stress, and what I'm picking up on the threads, if I'm hearing you right, is really faithfulness has been, that's the word that comes to my mind, is that arrow analogy or metaphor that you just shared, indicates something, at least from my worldview, which I haven't always had. I was like, the arrows like pointed at me. It's like the other way around.
Yeah.
Not from God, just from life. I think I'm wired kind of in that way, and that has changed. I've been able to work with God, and then in other ways, to change some of that worldview and dynamic. But in the times that we're in right now, I imagine, on a daily basis, you're running into folks that are really struggling with that dynamic. And I'm not trying to cut your story short, but I just wonder
Yeah.
how the experiences that you've had that have shaped you, how do you see those at work, like right now, in those that you're working with and serving?
Yeah. Um, well, I see so many people in the hospital right now that just they feel, um, stress is kind of like a pressure. I think of that. Um, what is it that stress or pressure, like towards a rock, and it produces some kind of gem, like a diamond or something.
Yeah.
Um, a hopeful way of looking at it, but there's a real sense among like our staff, like, just we're being crushed. I mean, we're just it's like we have this load of bricks that we're carrying, and each new um, requirement or screening process or rule, all for good reasons, all to bring about good. It just feels like another layer. It just feels like another brick. Um, and with that, um, the other thing I see a lot is, kind of like with the arrow analogy, is where are we going? Where is all this going?
Yeah, for sure.
That is there any direction? Is there, one of the questions I often ask families, um, how we shape things, how we see things and understand things. We tell a story. We tell a story about how I got this illness.
Right.
Or tell a story about how I discovered I had this illness. And, um, there's a sense that I asked one of our people today, our quality people, I said, where are we in this story? Are we at the beginning? Are we in the middle? Or are we about to turn a corner? Um, and I mean, that's just kind of it. Like, trying to help people find an arrow, find a direction through it. Because if you find a sense of purpose, that's kind of like, again, just living in the metaphor world today. That's kind of like a boat that you can sail on. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, the water is choppy. We're not really sure where this river is going to lead us, but hey, if I'm in the boat, I can direct it a little bit. There's some safety in the boat. Like, I'm okay in the boat, and so I think that's one thing is for me that was faith that helped me get through. A sense of purpose helped me get through. But yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Right. Well, thanks for going there. Yeah, and just applying your own journey and the experiences that you had and the role of faith. And then I love that you brought us into what this was a staff meeting where you had asked the question, where are we at in our story?
Oh, that was actually
Or
just kind of a drive-by conversation.
okay.
I wanted to. Well, I mean, it was intentional. I wanted to check on those people. Our quality department. They are really kind of the infection prevention people in our hospital, and so they're the people that everyone's looking to.
Yeah.
They're having to make the difficult decisions of how do we conserve our protective equipment, how do we protect our employees, and anyway, so um, they're just going through a lot, and I wanted to check on them, but I just asked her, and yeah, and of course she didn't have a crystal ball.
None of us I haven't met anyone that does so far, but if you find them, please get back with me and I'll let everyone else know.
Right. I mean, of course, with any disease like this, sometimes it gets worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
But the good news is we're doing the right things. We're doing the right practices to keep people safe. And if we just stick to it, I mean, I think, it's going to be okay. I trust, we just have some really smart people, not just here in Oklahoma, but, just around the country and around the world, really doing their best. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I should say for those listening in that don't know Brian, we've known each other for several years now through our church, Spring Creek Baptist Church. And it's just, this is who Brian is. And so to hear you share your story really intimately and at length like this is really rewarding for me on a personal level because we've known each other. and to hear it all sort of strung together like this. And then for you to take us inside the hospital and the work that you're doing now is just really empowering. And I can tell you, those that don't know Brian, he is a person that is committed to compassion and healing and providing opportunities for wholeness and comfort for others. And I see it all the time. And to hear it at work, away from the church and the context of our relationship is just awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Charles. Man, that feels really good to hear, and I would just echo that back towards you. Just getting to know each other at church, where there's a common bond of faith, but also I think you and I both, we realize just the power there is in vulnerability, and
Yeah.
leading from that. Um, it just is empowering, and people are able to come and ask questions and seek out input and feedback, because they know um, you're what you see is what you get, with
Right.
myself. And I try to maintain that, that transparency, that integrity. So yeah, but yeah, yeah.
Well, that feels really good. Likewise, coming back to me, I appreciate those words, and that lets me know that I'm on the right track. And from those that I really trust, that I'm close to, and they give me good feedback, and so that helps me to know if my arrow's pointed in the right direction. And as you were just talking, then I was you know processing the boat metaphor that you described just a few minutes ago. And I'm thinking, as you're saying the word vulnerability and then talking about authenticity and integrity, that I'm sensing some groundedness, even in uncharted waters and unstable terrain and unknown geography, to continue on those metaphor lines. And picturing a person, yourself, us in a boat and other folks. There is a phrase that comes from the Zen tradition. It's from Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh from Vietnam. And
Hmm.
to paraphrase it, it says he was around, and he's still alive, but he was around during the Vietnam War. And he has a short story that he tells that when the refugees were trying to escape and flee harm's way, when they would enter the boats to escape, if just one person would remain calm, then it would ensure the safe arrival of everyone on board. And
Hmm.
so I think to be a non-anxious presence is maybe a newer way of saying that in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm certainly hearing that, and knowing that folks like us and many millions of others that can be that non-anxious presence in this time is such a benefit to others. We really are connected, and that influences others and helps them stay grounded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100% uh, agree, and I'm tracking with you on that. I think that's one thing, especially now, um, and with the non-anxious presence. I think of that in terms of my own internal, like, if I'm a non-anxious presence, I've found a way to ground myself, kind of using that word grounding like you talked about.
Yeah,
uh, and so at the end of the day, I can come back to myself, or I can come back home, or I can do it throughout the day. um, and that is going to lower my level of anxiety, like the actual biochemical stuff that's going on in my body. But I also think too, like, a non-anxious um, person, a leader, is someone who is able to show up um, and respond, not out of not as a sense of just reacting and bringing their own um, stressors or issues, I guess. And you can kind of tell that in a room. Like if you sit in a room, whatever room it is, whether it's a support group or it's a team meeting, you can see the person who kind of brings in either their own agenda or they bring in their own set of stuff that it becomes another thing that the whole group has to deal with. Versus,
Right. Well said.
versus, okay, I'm here and I'm trying to figure out what the group needs and how the group needs to function, not adding or taking away anything. I'm trying to see, almost kind of like an observer. But anyway, like I think that's kind of the role of a chaplain is, we show up and we see everybody that's moving around, sometimes very anxiously.
Right.
They're to the patient, they're getting medicine, they're updating family, and we're able to kind of just see where all the pieces are going, and that's I don't know where my endpoint was with that comment, but I love that phrase, non-anxious presence. I think that defines kind of our approach and what I want to do and how I want to work.
Yeah, totally. And I can relate as a life coach, and I've done some hospice volunteer work and volunteered at a Deaconess Hospital for 3 years in the admitting department, because I feel a related call on my life to be someone that's compassionate and supportive and who really can help others in those kind of situations where not everyone's equally equipped. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's purposeful work. It's using my strength and skills and personality and God's gifts in my life and offering those to others in meaningful ways. And I've done some youth ministry and some praise band leadership. I did some of that. Not saying I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't do it
Yeah,
again, but that's a
yeah.
different animal altogether.
It's a different animal. It's invigorating and exciting, but it's a different animal.
It really, really is. But what I really wanted to recapture also from what you just shared about, about how you come back to yourself. I wonder if you could just take a minute or two to expound on that. And the context was you were sharing how, you encounter these different situations throughout the day, but there's a way to come back to yourself, to lower your own anxiety. What are some of the ways that you do that?
um, so um, three things. Of course, I say three, and I'll forget them by the time I get to the third one. But uh, first of all, is just deep breathing. Um, I the more often I just pause throughout my day and just maybe 2 minutes just to breathe in deeply and exhale and kind of close my eyes, and I think of it as kind of centering, just kind of slowing things down for a second and reassess, where am I, what am I doing. That has been so helpful, especially the last 3 months or so, just with different life events that have gone on. That has been so helpful. So deep breathing. I go running. I jog in my neighborhood, and um, that is a way just to get back in touch with my whole self. Um, the What I love about running is that it's a whole body thing. So often we spend so much time just in our heads.
Yeah,
We're thinking, we're computing, we're um, analyzing things,
totally.
we're feeling things, and um, and it's kind of disconnected to what's going on with my body, my actual, arms and legs and heart, and with running, I feel very connected to myself, and I'm able to think. I'm able to process stuff while I'm running. I'm totally unplugged from any electronics, except for my Garmin watch that tells me how fast or slow I'm going. But I don't listen to music. I don't listen to anything, and I just get out there. And then the last thing is just playing the guitar.
Yeah.
I like to, at the end of the day, just kind of mess around, just kind of play different things. It's kind of soothing, those are kind of the ways I do that.
That's awesome. So for those that, go back and listen to this again if you want those tips. But what I heard you say is deep breathing for a couple of minutes, doing that a few times a day if you can, running. And then because this is like a life purpose coaching sort of podcast, then for those that are listening, you can modify that. If you're not a runner, do something physical. Do the dishes by hand if you're stuck at home. Do some gardening. Dig around in the garden and find some worms. Yeah. Do something that connects you with another process, with nature, with something around the house. And then the third, you said playing guitar. So a hobby that could be modified for a hobby that someone has, woodworking or painting or who knows what, dance. If you miss some activities you haven't done in a while, you might pick those up right now. That might help ground you and come back to yourself, as Brian described it. I love the way you said that.
Yeah. Anything active can be just such a good practice, a good thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I did want to open it up. I do have other questions that I can ask, but I did want to make sure that if you had things you wanted to cover, we have, 10 or 15 more minutes, and I wanted to give you that opportunity.
Nothing right now. Yeah. Nothing off the top of my head.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, then, yeah, I was curious then about playing the guitar. This is just from one guitarist to another. What are some of the songs that you're playing lately? I mean, they don't have to, maybe you're just coming up with different arpeggios or strum patterns, but what are you playing lately, and how does it affect you?
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. I'm thinking, going back to what have I been playing lately? So you and I are, I don't know if I won't put words in your mouth.
Please do. You're probably right.
We have a common affection for the band Switchfoot, and
oh yeah,
and I love John Foreman. He's just got some really good acoustic stuff. One of the songs on one of his solo albums is called "Cure for the Pain."
Yeah,
or "The Cure for Pain." I forget the wording.
That's it. The Cure for Pain.
And it's just such a gentle, just song about how do we deal with our pain, and whether that's emotional pain, relational pain. How do we deal with that? So often we just distract ourselves. We run from it. Sometimes if we lean into it, look at it, it's not as bad as, it's okay to feel pain. And sometimes that's how we heal, is just to feel it, let it go. So I've been playing that one. There's one called "I Won't Let You Go."
Love that song. Love both those songs.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. My brain is kind of fried. It's getting late in the afternoon, and but anything by those guys, Switchfoot, John Foreman, yeah.
Totally. And then how does it, and that wasn't a pop quiz. It was just if it was on your mind, and you did come up with a couple of ones that, I can tell that have been running through your veins. But how does it affect you when you sit down with the guitar and you start to play, one of these songs specifically or just in general?
Um, I like the term um, uh, kind of ventilating the soul.
Oh,
Uh,
nice. Yeah.
uh, I heard that somewhere along the way, and we hear a lot about ventilators these days with the hospital and how we need them. Going back to the hospital, but
For sure.
yeah, I feel like it just kind of opens up the emotional chest cavity and lets some breath in there. And I have found though that sometimes if I'm feeling all kinds of grief and all kinds of pain, and it's getting to be overwhelming. Sometimes playing a song like that um, may not be beneficial. I may need to just get up and walk around. And so that's one thing I kind of navigate is this helping to soothe me, or is this kind of just overwhelming me? And I kind of have to self-monitor that. So,
Yes, I think that's so insightful, and I'm glad you shared that with us. That's something I have to watch too. I can get lost in any kind of process,
hmm
especially with like feelings or sensory things. I can get lost in my senses and get distracted for hours. And
hmm
sometimes I've done that with guitar and music, just as another form of distraction, which there can be benefit for it for a limited period of time. But as a person myself with a deep history of addiction, it's so easy for me to seek pleasure and escapism versus finding that the cure for pain is, like John Foreman says, is, if Jesus did it, maybe I shouldn't abandon the pain that's been given to me. Maybe there's something that this is trying to tell me, and it's trying to change me in some foundational way.
hmm
Yeah, so I love that. Just not to get distracted by the things that we lean on. We can lean on things too often. I know I can, and even misuse the good things, to keep
Yeah.
ourselves distracted or avoiding.
hmm Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, hey, I wanted to ask you this. This is a bigger question. I just wanted to open it up. And um, what is your greatest hope for these times that we're living in right now?
Hmm. Ooh, wow, that's a great question. Um, I think um, it's it's very ironic. Um, the word irony just seems to abound when you look at what's going on. For example, one irony is, and there's a hope out of the irony, is what I'm getting to. But so we are a people that are, um, what was it that Martin Luther King said? Our scientific power has outrun our spiritual power. We're so
Yes.
technology focused and less, um, you know, internally, spiritually, philosophically focused. And one of the things that's just so interesting about all this is um, our uh, our technology. We are so focused on our devices a lot of times. I mean, people are distracted by their cell phones while they're driving, um, at home. Our kiddos, I'm as guilty as anybody. We've got all the tablets and you know, the Xboxes and the things that, we just spend our lives in front of these screens. And the idea was that this technology would connect us. And then um, now it actually is, because the technology is one of the ways that we're connecting with each other as we're socially distancing. Um, and um, and just, yeah, I guess what I'm getting to, my hope is that we would become a more connected people to one another. That through this um, pandemic time, that we we think about each other's needs as much as we think about our own. I mean, that is like the rationale behind all of the practices that we're putting in place, for social distancing. It's not about whether I'm going to get the virus because, I mean, it is in some sense. Obviously, I'm taking my precautions because I want to be well. I need to be well for my family, but
Sure.
also, like, I don't want to affect or impact or spread this disease to someone that's more compromised with their immune system. And so I have to put the needs of my neighbor um, at the forefront of whether I choose to go out and get a Dunkin Donuts coffee after work, or whether I choose to go out and go running with my running friends if it means I'm making more personal contact, and that uh, amplifies the risk. So I hope that we become more connected to the needs of each other, and just more connected with ourselves, that we just, ask those bigger, why questions, like why am I in the job I'm in? Is this feeding my soul, or is this just something I'm doing? You know, yeah, that'd be my hope, I think.
That is huge. And I don't think I can add a whole lot to that, my friend. Is there anything else that you wanted to share for some parting words?
No, just everybody wash your hands.
Please
Don't
do.
go out if you don't have to. But the technology is, let's connect with people. Let's just not do it in person. But check on your family members. Check on the people in your church that are isolated. Check on your healthcare workers.
Absolutely. And as the husband of a teacher, I check on my teacher daily throughout the
Yeah,
day because she's home too here, and worrying about the kids and making sure they have enough food to eat. And so that there's a lot of concerns on caring people's hearts right now. And so I love those words to close us out today.
great.
Well, Brian, it has been a pleasure chatting with you today, and I look forward to seeing you in the near future, virtually,
Sounds.
if no other
Thank.
way.
It's been a joy and a lot of fun.
You've been listening to the Live Your Purpose podcast. I hope you've been inspired by my conversation with today's guest. If you like what you hear, please share with your social networks and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Charles Gossett, life purpose coach and founder of Full Integration Coaching. To learn more about the life coaching, public speaking, and retreat services that I offer, visit fullintegrationcoaching.com. And you can follow along with me on Facebook and Instagram at Full Integration Coaching. Until next time, remember, you were meant to live on purpose. Start living yours today.